What is it?
Before we can answer the question, can we kill the unborn, we have to answer the question, what is the unborn? That's the question at the center of the whole debate. If having an abortion is no different than clipping my fingernail or pulling my tooth, then I don't have a problem with it. But if abortion takes the life of a human being, that's a different matter altogether. So we've got to start with that question, what is the unborn?
Do you think abortion is complex or simple to figure out?
I think it's pretty complex.
What makes it complex for you?
Because it depends on the person's situation. Like, some people just aren't ready or don't have the ability or the resources to raise a child, and abortion is the only way to go.
The science of embryology tells me without a doubt that from the very beginning, that is conception, the unborn is a living, distinct, whole human being. Scientifically, we know that the unborn are alive. They fit the definition of what an organism is. They undergo cellular reproduction, meaning they grow. They metabolize by turning food into energy. They respond to stimuli. The unborn is distinct. That is, it is a separate entity from its mother. It is not part of her body. The unborn has its own unique genetic code. It's different from moms and dads. That's why you hear people argue in ways to say, the unborn has its own gender, it has its own blood type. Yes, all of these things are true because the unborn is distinct.
What are the unborn? Are they human of value like you and I? Are they the same as us? Or are they different in morally important ways that allows us to do the things that we're doing to them to the practice of abortion? What they are is so important. We can demonstrate it to you by a very simple anecdote that I offer. Imagine you go into your Home Depot, your local Home Depot. There's a section there in the garden section, in the home and garden section, that has insecticides and dealing with pests in the garden. And you look at that and almost nobody has any problem with that. How to kill ants, how to kill wasps, how to kill all these different animals. You don't see people morally struggling in the pesticide section of Home Depot. But what if right next to it was a section that was to kill your neighbor's dogs and cats section? Well, that would probably be a little bit more moral troubling. You would see that section and immediately realize something's wrong with Home Depot. Why are we killing our neighbor's cats and dogs? Why has this become an issue? And if next to that was kill your neighbor's section, well, then you would have a deeply morally troubling issue going on at Home Depot. You would suddenly be in the middle of a section that was designed to kill your neighbors, other human beings. You would immediately know that something was wrong with that. You don't need a PhD to tell you that human life is more valuable than the life of the ants that you buy bait traps for. You don't need a college professor to say that. You know that full well with your moral intuitions. And you can trust those to give us basic information about what we do and don't know as we're talking about the value of human life. Human life simply does have more value. And so when we ask the question, what are the unborn, we have to determine whether they're more like you and me, valuable human life that we recognize that it's wrong to do certain things to, or whether they're more like those ants or those bugs or those things that at Home Depot that we see no problem and having a whole section devoted to killing them.
Unlike my skin cells or just any old cell, that I could scratch my skin cells and they would fall off of my body and die very shortly after they hit the ground, I have not just killed an organism. Those cells are a part of me. They contribute to the overall function of the organism that is me. An embryo is different in kind from just any old cell. It is a whole entity in and of itself, and its parts contribute to its overall function even at that single-celled stage. Another way to think about the idea that the unborn is whole is to understand that in our society, we get really confused between something that is constructed versus something that is developed. We think of constructed things often because we live in an industrial society and we build a lot of things. Just like my car is put together on an assembly line, or my son puts together Legos in a castle, and he puts together those Legos one by one until he has what he wants to build as the finished product. Unlike a constructed thing, which is nothing more than a sum of its parts put together piece by piece, the unborn does something that no constructed thing could ever do. It develops itself from within. That means that you didn't come from an embryo, you once were an embryo, and everything that makes you you was already there at that first stage of your development.
If a mother had a 2-year-old and she wasn't ready to raise him, and she didn't want to give him up for adoption, would it be okay for her to kill the 2-year-old?
No, but it's not the same thing.
So would the issue be then not that whether or not the mother's ready or not, but whether the unborn is human like that toddler?
I have to go with the latter, yeah.
Okay, so if the unborn were human like that toddler, then the mother being ready or not would not be a good reason for killing the toddler? Is that what you're saying? Okay.
Notice something about that conversation. The issue of abortion was complex to that student only so long as she was allowed to believe the unborn weren't human. She hadn't argued for it, she was simply assuming the unborn weren't human. And what I did in that conversation is force her to look at the question, what is the unborn? As Christians, we know biblically, scientifically, and intuitively that the unborn are distinct, living, and whole human beings. That is why we've always got to direct this conversation back to the question, what is it?